Welcome to the Edmond Jets Flight Plan with your hosts, Michael and Brennan McLaughlin.
Welcome to the New York Jets Flight Plan. I'm Michael McLaughlin, here with Brennan McLaughlin in Warren, New Jersey. We're going to be talking about all things Jets, the scary things, the exciting things that happened in last night's preseason games. There was a mixture of both, whether it be Antonio Allen trying to make the transition from safety to cornerback, the debut of Calvin Pryor and all the hitting he did, and how did the Jets stack up with the rest of their division rivals? All right, Brendan, let's get started. What were your takeaways?
My takeaways are the secondary struggled against the Bengals' first-team offense. Particularly Kyle Wilson struggled, gave up that deep ball to Mohamed Sanu for the touchdown. So, biggest takeaway is the secondary struggled, the first-team secondary.
Kyle Wilson and Ellis Lancaster had to come in and play a lot, and we had to have the transition of Antonio Allen from cornerback to from safety to cornerback. It seemed like the Jets, Rex Ryan, really left the corners basically on an island last night to see how well can they play. There wasn't a lot of help over top from the safeties. On the one play where Antonio Allen got burned for about 40-something yards by A.J. Green, who happens to be one of the best wide receivers in the league. One, A.J. Green, you can see he pushed off a little bit at the end there, so that didn't help out. Two, there was no safety help over top, so it's basically like, let's see how well Antonio Allen can play. Now, that was the only reception he gave up. I'm sure the Bengals probably would have targeted him a little more in a regular season game. They're probably trying to get their other wide receivers help. So while it's certainly alarming what happened last night, you do have to remember that D. Milner, who was the first round pick from last year, one of the Jets' 2 first-round picks from last year, he wasn't in the game. The Jets certainly need him back for the first regular season game, or they are in a lot of trouble. And they need Dimitri Patterson back. They pulled in from the offseason from the Dolphins, or they will be in even more trouble, despite how bad he played last week. But there were a lot of injuries, so it is concerning, but I'm not ready to hit the complete panic button just yet. Because also, when you talk about Calvin Pryor, he came in last night, I think he had seven tackles, tackle for loss, he broke up 2 passes, and he set 2 people out of the game. He hit 2 people hard enough that they were injured, and they left the game between Kobe Hamilton and Rex Burkhead. And the first one was he dislodged the reception. I think Tony Allen was on coverage, was a little behind. He knocked that ball out, dislodged that. He actually thought that was a fumble. The other time was he came in the backfield, and he rocked Rex Burkhead. He was a decent-sized running back, and he gave him had a thigh contusion. He had to leave the game. So I think when the regular season rolls around and you have him roaming the secondary, that's going to give them a lot of help because sometimes if D. Milner does get burned, Calvin Pryor hopefully will be there to hit someone hard and dislodge the ball.
It was drafted for.
My other big worry from last night was, the defense. They did overall play bad. The defensive line, despite how good it is and how prolific it should be this year, they didn't play well. They didn't really. The Bengals had a decent time running the ball, and Andy Dalton, let's face it, we made him look like Joe Montana out there. He went 8 for 8, I think 143 yards in that touchdown, because they had all day. He had all day. He could just sit back there all day. Quinn Culpers gave a little bit of a pass rush, but the pass rush didn't really show up until the Jets were playing their Bengals' second-team offense, and Demario Davis came off the edge and forced that sack and fumble, which, by the way, Calvin Pryor happened to recover. So you have to be very excited about that. And I'm high on Geno Smith from last night's game. How do you think he played? I think while he didn't make any big plays, he stepped up in the pocket nicely. You can see he's added about 10 pounds of muscle. He looked a little faster, a little more athletic, very good pocket awareness, and he threw the ball well. He didn't really make any mistakes. There was the one interception to David Nelson, but that seemed like that could have been anything more of just a miscommunication between him and Nelson. Maybe could have come out of his break a little faster.
Right. Yeah, I thought he showed good pocket presence, Geno Smith. He ran the ball pretty well, actually. Whenever there's pressure, he escaped the pocket and had several good carries.
Welcome back to the New York Jets Flight Plan. In honor of all the blitzing I think Rex Ryan's going to be doing this year, we're going to do a little bit of a Twitter blitz. So the first tweet from the Twitterverse is from ESPN's Mike Greenberg. He says, "I don't mind the Jets getting in a bunch of fights last night. That won't matter in 3 weeks. They can't cover anybody. That will." What do you think?
Well, it's very true, I gotta say. Mike Greenberg just sort of stated the obvious there, but...
He is. Yes, he is. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to notice that the Jets secondary last night was horrible. When you give up 8 for 8 for Andy Dalton, 140-something yards, and touchdown passes, clearly they're bad.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about all the fighting, though?
the fight was very excessive. You know, one was a little ticky-tacky, another defending.
Yeah, Demario Davis, when they said, I think Matt Scott was in at quarterback, and Demario Davis pushed him out of bounds. Maybe I think it was Matt Scott, who he tacked him out of bounds, and then to get up, he was kind of in the way. And then they called that as a personal foul. That was classic Ed Hockley.
Yeah.
Just loves throwing his flag out, loves showing his muscles. With
Getting the camera time.
Yeah, get the camera time with the tight referee shirt.
Right.
I mean, that was unnecessary. Are you kidding me, Ed? I think every fan, when they see Ed Hockley's reffing their game, they're just like, oh no, this is going to be a long day. I mean, they call him for like 12 penalties, I think 133 yards. So that one was excessive. And then there was on the Geno Smith interception. Now, at first glance, I was like, really, Cologne, Breno Cicamini, what are we doing? Like, you're killing me, because you know, Willie Cologne's constantly seems like he's trying to pick a fight.
Right.
But on second glance, it seems like he was actually trying to just defend him more there. That the Jets actually really did not initiate that as much. It seems like Gio Camini actually thought he wasn't down yet, so he was trying to make the tackle. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a slide.
Yeah.
But still, it is something to be a little worried about. They have to be more disciplined by that because what happened against the first team was, you know, the Jets would make a play, they get a 15-yard gain, but then they get a 15-yard penalty. They get back, or they stop them, but then there'd be a penalty at the end of the play, and the Bengals would keep the drive going. There was a lot of unnecessary penalties that just made it that much easier on the Bengals.
Yeah.
And it already was easy on them because D. Milner wasn't playing, Dimitri Patterson wasn't playing. McDougal's out for the year, but we'll have Patterson and Milner back to help shore that up, so I don't think the second day is be as bad. And Calvin Pryor wasn't starting. So already made it a lot easier for them, and then the penalties is just making it much too easy.
Right, keeping drives alive for the Bengals.
That's what they did, and that's what they did when they lost 49-9.
Yeah,
right. Read the next tweet from Mike Donnelly.
Yeah, he says on Twitter, as usual with Jets coverage, anything the Jets did well last night doesn't count. Anything they did poorly is a huge cause of concern.
I agree with that. There is a tendency with the beat reporters for the Jets, Rich Cimini, Manish Mehta, Seth Wahlberg. They all tend, not as much Seth, but they tend to have a very negative view of the Jets. I mean, if you go on like ESPN comments and see the comments of Rich Cimini's post, he does not have too many fans. And it does, because a lot of times he does seem to have a very negative view of the team. Sometimes it's realistic, but sometimes it's a little too much. I mean, there's some of those things are cause for concerns, but I just outlined there's 5 cornerbacks missing. Calvin Pryor wasn't starting. Antonio Allen is playing at cornerback. Immediately, the Jets' secondary is going to get better when Allen moves back to safety, likely. Pryor starts at safety. D. Milner starts at one spot. And then Dimitri Patterson starts at the other, or Darren Wallace comes in and starts.
Right.
So it's not that bad. But then there were things, you know, what the Jets touchdown, like Rich Cimini was like, well, I mean, that's a caveat. One of the first touchdowns against the first team Bengals defense, it was they started the Bengals 19 because they made the sack and covered the fumble. And they scored a touchdown. So he kind of like, well, they only go 19 yards, so it's not hard. But still, give them credit. You know, the Jets had trouble in the red zone last year, and they converted now. Yeah. So give them credit for that. And then the next one, it did come against the second team Bengals defense. But, you know, they were supposed to score a touchdown on them, and they did. Yeah. And some of the earlier drives when they were playing the Bengals first team defense, they would make some nice plays, and then they shot themselves in the foot because of damn penalties. Right. So I'm still bullish on the Jets offense. I still think they're going to be able to put up much more points. And then again, Eric Decker, you could argue is the Jets' best offensive player, wasn't even playing last night. And they were still able to move the ball. Geno Smith stepped up in the pocket very nicely. He showed good pocket awareness. He's still very mobile, more mobile, has a strong arm, threw the ball pretty accurately. Stephen Hill even made a catch. He jumped up and caught the ball on a critical third down. It was like 3rd and 17. Yeah, do you remember? He caught the ball. And I think he's really a guy that just have to get some confidence going. They just got to give him the ball and just hopefully build his confidence because he is so talented. Now, the next tweet comes from Brandon Tierney, who says, reviewing the Jets game this morning, very impressed with Geno's footwork, pocket awareness, obvious improvements from rookie season. I think that's what most people who do this for a living who are looking at the tape. They watched Geno Smith's last 4 games, his development last year, whether it be Ron Jarowski, who you said the other day, heard him say he thinks he's a rising star, which is odd because he ranked at 32nd based on last year's tape. But the last 4 games, he played very well. And he has a lot of tools. Like, say, a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, who got drafted this year, who also at one point, they thought he was going to be the first round pick in the NFL draft, just like when Geno Smith, in his senior year, they thought he was going to be a first round pick. A first overall pick.
Overall.
And Geno Smith has a lot more talent. It's just in terms of out talent, he's a stronger arm than Teddy Bridgewater. He's a little more mobile. He's a little bigger. He's not as skinny. So I think it's gonna go well for him.
I think so too. Yeah. Your dad got a whole off season under his belt, so I think that really helped him.
I mean, in last season, you watched the Jets play. Was that not basically the least talented wide receiver core you've ever seen?
Yeah, only good wide receiver was Jimmy Trolley, and everyone else was.
They were bad. They were terrible. I mean, Santonio Holmes, everyone just wanted him off the team. David Nelson came on late in the season when they picked him up. He was a nice pickup. So he's competent. He's decent. He's not great. And Jordan McCurley was the best wide receiver.
Right.
And it was just Brian Winters, who looks like he's progressed this year a little bit, played terrible. It was terrible. You could not get much worse at guard. So that didn't help their production. DeBrickshaw Ferguson had a down year. So it really just was not, the Jets did not help him at all. Just like why he dropped so far in college was because the last 5 games he played at West Virginia, I believe they lost. But he also that was the worst defensive team I've ever seen in any sort, in any level, in any level of football. I mean, I remember they played Oklahoma, and I think they put up 40-something points and still lost because their defense was just terrible. So he was put in a couple of bad situations. Now I think the situation's looking better, and I'm excited for how he's gonna play. Now why don't you read the next tweet from our good friend Rich Cimini.
He says on Twitter, Jets played like hockey goons and offered no apologies for the 7 personal fouls.
What a hockey goon is different than any other type of goon, I don't know. I don't know what a hockey goon is. Maybe he can explain that later on. They did. They did have 7 personal fouls, which, I mean, if that happened in regular season games, I think all Jets fans are going to be throwing the TV control at the TV.
Luckily, this was preseason.
Luckily. There's some Jets fans are crazy. They still might have thrown the TV control. There's some angry Jets fans at the beginning of the game last night when it was looking pretty bleak. But that's just, that's Rich Cimini. That's what he does. It's true. It's take a little jab at the Jets. I mean, you like the fire. Hopefully, they can just take that fire and aggressiveness and use it between the whistles.
Right.
When the whistle blows, everyone go back to the huddle. We don't need to shoot ourselves in the foot any more than we already have. And particularly, we're playing division rivals. I mean, there's a lot of toss-up on who's going to be ranked where in this division. Some people like the Jets. Some people like the Bills. Not a lot of people like the Dolphins. How do you think it's going to line up? I mean, it's pretty much a given. Most people take a given. With the additions the Patriots made, they're more talented than last year. They're going to take the division for, I think, was it the 13th year in a row? So when Tom...
Well, the Dolphins won 2008, so it would be like
the one,
14 years.
Yes.
Let's get that clear.
Yeah, that's true.
But
how's he going to line up?
Tom Brady, whatever he's going to be, the Patriots, going to be hard to beat the Patriots in the division, so... I think the Jets and Dolphins, and probably the Bills, maybe they'll get a win against them, but I think the Patriots will finish in first again.
Not of the year.
But I think the Dolphins now improved. After the whole bully scandal stuff, the offensive line improved. So Ryan Tannehill, new offense with Bill Lazor. So I think Dolphins will finish in second, close second with the Bills. The Jets, excuse me. What are you saying?
Talk about some of those improvements on the offensive line for the Jets, because the Jets fans just remember the debacle that was the offensive line last year. So how have they improved? Who have they put in there?
At left tackle, they signed Brandon Albert from the Kansas City Chiefs, Pro Bowler.
They have been trying to do that for about 2 years now, right?
Yes,
They finally got him.
Finally got him.
Okay.
At center, Mike Pouncey. He's got the torn labrum. He's recovering from that. He should be back. He might miss the first 6 games of the season. We'll see. But
you worried about that?
I'm a little worried. I was worried at first. At center, Shelley Smith, people couldn't snap the ball. So
you gotta be able to snap the ball for the rest of the play.
Shotgun, they're like dribblers.
Yes.
But eventually, last week we signed Samson Sattelli. He's actually worked pretty well. Dolphins signed him in 2007. Now he's back to the Dolphins. The offensive line has settled in with him coming back. Juwan James, right tackle.
Like Ricky Bobby's got 2 first names. So
That's
play well.
That's right. At right tackle out of Tennessee. He's shown good promise in the first 2 preseason games.
He's plugged right in away, correct?
Right,
Started
correct.
right away?
Yes.
How's he done in the preseason games?
He's played very well, actually. Good in pass protection, looks pretty good in run blocking. The run game has to improve, though. The offensive line is working on that. But he's looked pretty well. They played him for the first 3 quarters in each preseason game, so they're getting him a lot of work in there.
All right, so later on we'll delve a little bit deeper and compare the Jets and the Dolphins wide receivers. Right, so you think the Dolphins are going to take second?
Yes.
Okay.
Barely.
Barely.
Close with the Jets.
So you're having the Bills finish 4th?
Yes, but I think it's going to be tight. It's not like the Bills are going to finish 5-11. I think the Bills are actually going to have a good year, but I think it's going to be a pretty close division.
Well, here's my thing with the Bills, because there actually are a lot of people who think Bills, this is a sleeper team. They're gonna be second in the division, maybe make the playoffs. And if that happens, I'll be shocked. I'll put that on the record right now, because one, their best defensive player, or their two best defensive players, are not playing for them this year. One, Kiko Alonso, who some people thought should have been Rookie of the Year over Sheldon Richardson of the Jets last year.
He tore his ACL.
Tore his ACL. He's out the year. I don't think he's better than Sheldon, but nonetheless, he was their best defensive player.
Right.
Maybe him or Mario Williams left.
Right.
He's out for the year.
And
So that improvement.
Right.
There's improvement there, right? Now, Jarius Byrd, who a lot of people think is the best ball hawking safety in the NFL. Well, he signed a massive contract with the New Orleans Saints, so he's gone there. How are they filling in these holes? And then, yes, they still do have Mario Williams, who had like the biggest contract in the history, defensive contract in the history of the NFL.
With Marcel Davis and Kyle Williams.
And Marcel Dallas showed up out of shape to camp.
Yeah.
So.
He failed his condition
And
test.
Mario Williams is kind of like an accumulator. I feel like he just accumulates sacks, so somehow not making as much an impact on the game as his numbers would say. So I'm not very bullish on them, particularly with Sammy Watkins last night. Injured his ribs, his back. They're saying it's his ribs. It looked like his back. He was grabbing his back.
Right.
But still, they traded all those picks for him, and who knows how long he's going to be out. So I think people have to pump the brakes on the Bills. They're still the Buffalo Bills, okay? So this is.
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, like they say.
They don't circle them at all. They just lose. So I'm not worried about them. Now, with the Jets and the Dolphins, honestly, I think the Dolphins, people are too low on the Dolphins. After the last year happened, I think, they did shore up the offensive line a little bit. I mean, they were 8-6 last year before they lost the final 2 games. So they did collapse a little bit, and I think Ryan Tannehill will take that leap this year, as he showed in the first preseason game, not so much as last night, but the first preseason game where he played very well. They'll be better, and they do have some weapons.
Yeah.
But still,
wide receiving core is very deep this year.
I don't think any of their wide receivers are fantastic, though. That's my one thing with them.
They got the depth.
And I'm worried about the running game, because they were 26th last year. The Jets are 6th. I think the Jets running game have a much better running game than the Dolphins. They have Cameron Wake. They have a good defensive front. I think the Jets have a better defensive front. Linebacker core, if Demario Davis is taking the steps that he's shown in the preseason in the leadership, and it's his 3rd year, if he takes those steps, I think the Jets are going to have a better linebacker core. Then the problem becomes the secondary.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think, and then if you want to say it's close at all, while Rex Ryan, a lot of people make fun of him, sometimes think he makes buffoonish comments, I don't have much faith in Joe Philbin. He couldn't handle that locker room last year. So I think the Jets are going to take 2nd in the division. The Patriots are going to take it because they are the Patriots. That's what they do. They have the most talented team, particularly with Tom Brady still there. Now, excuse me?
No, continue. I didn't say. What are you going to
Well,
say?
what I want to go to is now, if the Patriots are the biggest threat, who's their biggest offensive threat besides Tom Brady?
I guess it's Julian Edelman, slot receiver. Before he was a really good target for Tom Brady. While they still had Wes Welker, and then he filled in Wes Welker and filled in very well for him. And with Rob Gronkowski, very injury prone, I gotta say Edelman is their top weapon besides Tom Brady.
The thing is, Gronkowski is injury prone, but I want to read some stats. If this was over, Rob Gronkowski, he played 7 games last year, and he had 39 catches, 592 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, if you extrapolate that across the 16-game season with those averages, say he played all 16 games, which is, that's a big question mark with him, whether he could actually stay that healthy. But if he did, that would have been 89 catches, 1,353 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And that's just pure domination at the tight end position. So we all know if he's on the field and healthy, besides maybe Jimmy Graham, there's just no one close to him at that good level. So if he's on the field, he still is the biggest threat, and the Jets have to find someone who can cover him. And I think Antonio Allen can cover him, because last year there's 13 targets, Gronk caught 5, and Antonio Allen did have that interception in return for a touchdown, his best player of the year.
That's right.
So
not one against the Patriots.
So I think if you want the safe money is on Julian Edelman. That's who the Jets have to worry about the most, because who knows if Gronk will actually be able to play. But if he shows up, he suits up, he steps on the field, it immediately becomes Rob Gronkowski. Do you disagree with that?
No. Well, I don't think we'll see how he recovers from the torn ACL, but I'll stay with Edelman though because he just stays healthy more and.
He's more consistent present.
Right.
He doesn't have the injury problems that Gronkowski has. Now when we come back, we're going to have possibly my favorite segment on the show, the BS meter. A lot of people think there's a lot of BS going on at Jets camp. We'll talk a little bit about it. Welcome back to the New York Jets flight plan. As I said before the break, possibly my favorite segment of the show is the BS meter. So to get started off right off the bat, we have a nice juicy quote from Willie Colon last night, who's really amping up a preseason football game.
Juicy.
He said, "We were fired up going into this game. Last time we stepped into the stadium, we got our butts handed to us. We got embarrassed the last time here. No ifs, ands, or buts. When we looked at the tape, that wasn't the Jets we want to be. They're a playoff team and we're trying to take that next step. We will still have miles to walk, we understand that, but the preseason is a time to build that." Alright, Brendan, what do you think of Willie Colon really getting amped up about a preseason game? The second preseason game, not even the third.
I think it's taking it a little too seriously. It is a preseason game. They can show it's got a little too intensity for a preseason game. So that's a little BS, but not too much. I see why the Jets got blown out against the Bengals last year. So I see he's angry from that. I think they're trying to show something to prove that, but it's a preseason game, so it's a little BS, but not too much.
Here's why I don't think it's BS. Well, you might want it to be BS. I think in Willie Colon's mind, he actually was amped up for this game. You see him on the field; he's gonna lead the team in personal fouls.
Right.
He's just going. He's gonna lead the
It's
team
inevitable.
in instigating fights and being in the fights. That's just kind of the player he's been ever since he was with Pittsburgh. So I don't think that's BS coming from him.
Right.
I mean, we probably don't want them having to be that amped up about a preseason game, but it does set the tone. And hopefully, if they're going to be this amped up, this aggressive, just for a preseason game, that will lead over into the regular season.
Right.
So what's the next quote we have?
We got from Matt Sims. He quotes, "After a while, you're just like, how many hours can I sleep and sit in the room and beat Gino in FIFA?" So it's a soccer video game. So it got kind of boring after a while.
Here's this. I know that's not BS either, but what's BS is that he probably should be spending maybe a little more time in the playbook, being that Taj Boyd recently just got drafted. So he's in a competition just to make the roster right now.
Yeah.
Now for him, he didn't play last night, but like how Tyler Wilson got injured for Cincinnati and Matt Scott came in, it actually helped Tyler Wilson out because Tyler Wilson didn't have a chance to play bad. Taj Boyd got the chance to play bad last night, and whether it was the just first game jitters or not, it was very inaccurate, didn't look comfortable on the field. But still, Matt Sims, beating Gino in FIFA is probably about the only thing he's going to beat him this year. Now, the next quote's from Chris Johnson. He goes, "I don't think there's too many people in this league who would go out and say another guy is better than them." And I picked this quote because the Jets are always getting ragged upon about how they're always saying, we're the best in this, we're going to be top 5 in this, and everyone's always going like, this is just another Jets quote. And all, that's true, they do always make these bold statements, and Rex Ryan's known for making bold statements. I mean, a lot of times I'm saying, well, no one's going to say, oh, we're not good enough to do that.
That's fine.
We can pull Jurgen Klinsmann for the U.S. national team and say, yeah, we're probably not going to win the World Cup, we're not good enough. You should think you're the best at your position. So I have no problem with Chris Johnson going out and saying, I still think I'm the best at our position. That's what he should think. He should be confident.
Yeah, so I definitely think that's not BS.
Welcome back to the New York Jets flight plan. The next topic out there is for all the fantasy football nerds. Now, Eric Carabell, who is one of ESPN.com's fantasy experts, well, he had some good things to say about the Dolphins and some not so good things about some of the Jets players. So, Brendan, if you want to read what he said about the Dolphins, Lamar Miller.
This is what Eric Carabell has to say. Miller didn't do much in the first preseason game, as if any of that matters. But summer acquisitions, no Sean Marino is still working his way back from knee surgery, and the lure of this new offense has people excited about the Toolsy Miller again. Plus, colleague Christopher Harris, which also from ESPN, planted one of his very valuable flags on Miller and debated with me about him versus Marino as well. Who's right? Well, I definitely agree Miller's stock is rising, but I still think he's nothing special.
Okay, but still an overall positive tone. Now I'm going to read about Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson, now what Eric Carabell thinks about that. He goes, Johnson's ADP, average draft position, is down 4 spots in a week, which is significant since he's not hampered by an injury. Nobody stepped up to steal his job, and he actually scored a touchdown last week. Ivory, never the picture of health, left prematurely with a rib injury last week. The Jets' offense looked like a mess yet again. I keep moving Johnson further from my top 20, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets added more running back depth. There's so many statements and just sentences that were just combined there in words that are so asinine that when I read this, my head was ready to explode. So I'm going to delve a little bit. You can tell me your thoughts after, being the resident Dolphins expert. I'm going to delve a little bit into his rationale and how it's very conflicting. So for Lamar Miller, his stock is going up because Sean Moreno is injured.
Right.
So he's injury prone. He's coming off an injury.
It's
Yeah,
true
Chris
that.
Johnson's stock is somehow going down because Chris Ivory is injury prone. So one that doesn't make sense. Another point. Last year the Dolphins were ranked 6th in rushing the ball. The Jets were ranked 6th in rushing in the NFL. The Dolphins were ranked 26th. 2, he goes on to say, the Jets' offense looks like a mess yet again. He wrote this after the Jets' offense had 2 series in the preseason. I don't know how that turned out to be a mess. I don't think they looked like a mess last night, which is, this was written a couple days before last night's game. But the logic there, I just can't wrap my head around. Why are we high on Lamar Miller, who hasn't really done much, who's never rushed for more than 750 yards in his NFL career?
Right.
Yet we're down to Chris Johnson and Chris Ivory, who are both shown to have more talent, have a better offensive line in front of them, and it looks like, the offense should be comparable to them.
Right, and to say about Lamar Miller, it's not like he's done anything in the preseason, really.
And this is
To be honest.
the Dolphins guy.
Right, he's had a few nice catches for yards after catch yesterday, but he hasn't done anything running the ball, only catching out of the backfield.
I really don't think there's a debate here.
Right.
It's a little confusing, but where there is a debate, I think, is Jets and the Dolphins. Who really has the best wide receiver? I'm going to go out there and say it's Eric Decker. Are you going to say it's Brian Hartline?
Yes, I think he's more well-rounded than Mike Wallace, so I have to say Brian Hartline. His stats, last year he had 76 catches. He had another over 1,000-yard receiving season, so back-to-back years he's had over 1,000 yards receiving. And he only had 4 touchdowns, but so he's very well-rounded. He's Ryan Tannehill's go-to target.
Does he excite you? Doesn't excite me.
He excites
I don't
me.
think he excites anyone.
Oh, he's a good wide receiver.
He is a solid wide receiver, but he's not even the highest paid wide receiver on his own team.
Yeah.
Mike Wallace has that massive contract. Maybe I would say you could say Mike Wallace is the best overall.
Right.
Maybe just athletic ability, athletic target. But since you didn't give me that, you gave me Brian Hartline. How is Brian
Mike
Hartline?
Wallace has the big play ability, and Brian Hartline's the
How is Brian Hartline better than Eric Decker? Please give me a spot of Brian Hartline's game where he's better. Okay, one, Eric Decker's bigger than him. He's bigger. So he's better red zone threat. Okay, their 40 time, their speed is very comparable. Their hands very comparable. Eric Decker is a very good route runner. Okay, Eric Decker has put up better numbers. Where is Brian Hartline somehow better than Eric Decker?
Well, you gotta say Peyton Manning was Eric Decker's quarterback, so I think
All right. Okay. Well, one, he caught 8 with the combination of Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow a couple years ago. So that's a great quarterback combination. Eric Decker still caught 8 touchdowns. That was in his second year in the NFL. A lot of times it takes wide receivers a long time to transition to the NFL compared to other positions such as a running back. Yeah, he still had a productive season. Also, I believe Pro Football Focus, who ranks and watches every single play of every single NFL game, and then they make their ratings, they do a plus or minus on how effective a player is. They gave Eric Decker last year with Peyton Manning a plus 16.9, basically saying they had him as the 11th rated wide receiver in the entire NFL. That's 11. I don't think Brian Hartline was ranked that high. But more importantly, here's a stat for you. It's called a stat called wide receiver quarterback ranking. Basically, what is the quarterback's quarterback rating when he's throwing to that wide receiver? Well, Peyton Manning had the 5th highest quarterback rating in the NFL when he was throwing to Eric Decker. So Eric Decker had essentially, he was the 5th best target in the NFL last year in terms of being able to catch the ball and make plays.
Right.
That's something that's going to translate to Geno Smith, who's throwing on the ball. While he's not going to catch the ball as much, and certainly Geno Smith is not going to be Peyton Manning, and he will never be Peyton Manning, he's still going to have a very, very good target to throw the ball to him.
Right.
Not Brian Hartline, who is just solid.
He's solid though. He's just solid. Like I said, there's depth. Dolphins have really good wide receiving depth this year. So he's many targets. Brian Tannehill's many targets.
There's a lot of depth on the Jets too, but I'm talking about the number 1 overall target, Eric Decker.
All right.
I think Eric Decker is going to be a hit for the Jets, and after the break, we're going to talk about some of the draft picks and who's going to be a hit or a miss. Saturday night versus the Bengals, Jets fans got to see Calvin Pryor hit a lot and hit people very hard. In fact, he knocked 2 players out of the game. In our next segment, we're going to talk about some of the Jets draft picks and see if they're going to be a hit or a miss. Brendan, we're going to start off with Calvin Pryor. I'm thinking you have to have some positive words about him.
Oh, I gotta say hit here for sure. Really made a lot of plays last night. Hard hits, like we said. Injured 2 players, so he's laying out the big hits what he's drafted for. Making plays in the backfield. So I definitely gotta say this was a hit for the Jets.
For sure. It's his first NFL game. On his 3rd NFL snap, I know it's preseason, he recovered a fumble. He was around the ball the entire night. He started to strike some fear into some people. He knocked 2 people out of the game. He broke up the pass. He stopped him in the backfield, tackled for loss. So really, just rave reviews from him. I'm really excited for this week coming up to see him against the Giants. Hopefully he'll get the start.
The Snoopy Bowl.
Yeah, the Snoopy Bowl. Hopefully he'll hit some Giants pretty hard. I know Jets fans would like that. Now someone who's had a little bit of a shaky start, but has shown some positives and some negatives, is Jason Morrow. What do you think about him so far?
I'll lean to hit right now. And the rookies are going to be a little inconsistent, but what he's shown, I got to say hit right now, but not as much as what Calvin Pryor has shown. So he's a little bit hit, but
It's a small hit?
It's a small hit. It's an infield single.
And that one is chopped. It's going to be a tough play. In fact, he's safe at first.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Jason Morrow right now, unlike Calvin Pryor, last night you'd say he looked like a home run.
Okay.
Jason Morrow, maybe he's got a single, maybe he's rounding first, on his way to second, based on last night's performance. The first game, he showed some nice positives. He showed being able to catch the ball, turn upfield quickly, and make some yards after catch. But he also showed sometimes you want to be a little more aggressive at attacking the ball. There was one pass that went off his tips and was running out so flat, and then another that it was a back shoulder kind of thing. It almost seemed like it might have went through his hands.
Right.
Now this is a guy who's 6'6", 265 pounds. You want him to attack the ball, be physical, use that big body that he has. I think he'll eventually do that, but right now it's a process. It took him a while to learn yeah. As Chad Pennington once said, it's a process, and I know Jets fans don't want to hear those words. But I do think he's going to be a key component of the passing game this year. There's already, in many formations, he's already starting over Jeff Cumberland. Not exactly in line, but when they line the tight up out on the slot, Jason Morrow is that guy. So I definitely think it's someone that Jets fans are going to like in the future. He's going to be a big, nice, reliable target for Geno Smith. Now, someone who didn't play last night is Jalen Saunders. Now, many Jets fans might not know who that is because he really didn't do much in the first preseason game, and he wasn't on the field last night. In fact, he missed Friday's practice because of Jets head coach Rex Ryan saying a medical incident / car crash. No one's really quite sure what happened. Jets rookies are usually in a hotel that's about a mile or less from the practice facility. It seems like a police sergeant said he had some sort of medical incident, but Rex Ryan won't elaborate upon that, so we don't know what's going on upon him. And he was supposed to be the Jets' first punt returner and also, help out in the wide receiver corps. So, what do you think about him?
Right now, I know it's early. I have to say it's a miss right now, just for a little off-field issues. Though we don't know the extent of really what happened, so I have to say it's a miss right now. He would help in the return game, but we'll see. Jacoby Ford's now going to take over his duties, but right now it's a miss, but it's early, so it could definitely change to a hit.
Well, he was criticized. That pick was a little bit criticized in the 4th round. A lot of people thought they should take Bruce Allen, who's a similar-sized player, weighs a little more, out of South Carolina. I will say, though, for anyone who watches SEC football or likes watching college bowl games, you go back to the Oklahoma-Alabama football game, the Sugar Bowl, and Jalen Saunders was a star. He made big plays. He ran past Alabama defenders. He looked elusive, and he's looked elusive and quick in practice so far. The problem is he is very small. So he's actually injury prone, you might think, in the NFL. He didn't have any injury problems in college, and he put up big numbers. But you're talking about a guy who weighs, he's soaking wet. It's 170 pounds.
Right.
Now this injury, whatever happened this past week, was not football related. It doesn't seem like he was doing anything wrong. It's very strange.
Right.
Very strange. So I hope this to be a hit. Right now, none of the Jets rookie wide receivers are looking very good. But Shaq Evans, rookie out of UCLA, done for the season because of his shoulder injury. And then Christian Nunwa being injured in the beginning of training camp with his hamstring problems, being taken along slow, and he was always considered a project. I think the Jets If Amaro doesn't pan out, the Jets are going to receive and mainly John Nizick they're going to receive some criticism for not maybe picking a wide receiver higher, not going up and getting a Marquise Lee, even though that's something they tried to do.
Right, they tried to trade up for him, right.
So the biggest debate throughout training camp has been Vic versus Geno. Now, Geno Smith versus Michael Vick. It hasn't quite been the controversy that the media has wanted to be or tried to build it up to be. In fact, Michael Vick has basically gone out of his way to make sure that's not a controversy. He's even said that Geno Smith was a second-round pick and he deserves the chance to start. Do you think he deserves that chance?
Yes, I do. I do believe Geno Smith deserves to start. Based off just in the offseason, too, I think he's outplayed Michael Vick. Even though Michael Vick, he's had a good career and he's definitely a top backup. But right now, I think Geno Smith deserves the start based off how in the offseason he's played with he's been 72 for 130 in the 11-on-11 drills in training camp. So I think he deserves to start right now.
I mean, I think he should get the start. Although I will say some people think Vic slightly outperformed him in training camp. Slightly, not by a large margin. So it would have had to have been an astronomical margin for Vic to get the start. One caveat to that is he's outperformed him, but he's also, Geno Smith has gotten 81% of the first team reps. So he's the guy going against the first team defense, whereas Michael Vick has been going against the second team defense. So it's a little older. Michael Vick's a veteran. He should play well against the second team defense. But the one thing the Jets really have to do, more so than even making the playoffs this year, is they have to find out if Geno Smith is the quarterback for the future. Because if you miss on a first or second round pick as a quarterback, that sets your team back 2 to 3 years really, because you have to draft another one, and then you have to develop him. Like Geno Smith, unless you're Andrew Luck, you're not a ready-made product coming to the NFL. Geno Smith, as everyone can attest to last year, was not a ready-made product. He threw 21 interceptions to 12 touchdowns. Last 4 games, he played great. He played really well. Really played like he could be a solid NFL quarterback, can be the franchise quarterback of the future for the Jets. And they have to make sure that he is that guy this year. Because if they miss on him, they have to start all over again after they had to start over again because of Mark Sanchez. Basically not wasted 4 years because they did make the AFC Championship twice, but in terms of Mark Sanchez, they were not able to find their quarterback of the future. I mean, you could very well argue, they made those championships in spite of him.
Right, because of the defense.
Now, the last segment we have for the show is called Hurt or Help. A lot of fans have been witnessing and seeing just how many times the yellow flag has been pulled out of the referee's pants. Ed Hockley does that all the time anyways, for all his unknown reasons. But anyways, with all the new defensive ruling, basically, if you're a defensive back, your job gets harder every year, and it's got extremely hard this year, with that league office basically mandated that they're going to be very ticky-tacky, very touchy on how they call pass interference, defensive holding. So now do you think the Jets, whose secondary is already suspect, is this going to hurt them or is this going to help them?
I think it's going to hurt them right now. I think they're calling even more in the preseason, so they'll stop players from committing that foul. But I think this will hurt the Jets. I think it's going to hurt the flow of the game just in general, because I think it's going to hurt them. They've really been going after the cornerbacks. It's, like you said, it's making them harder for them every year. So I think this will hurt the Jets with already a little weak secondary right now.
I like what you said about the flow of the game. I think it's going to get annoying to fans when you constantly have to see and hear Ed Hockley and the other refs make their calls. It's just going to get annoying. If the game's going to start and stop a lot more because the flag is going to be coming out a lot. Now this is like a catch-22. This is like double-sided almost. The Jets have problems in their secondary, but then could this help them on offense where the wide receivers are going to get more flags? Now, being a Jets fan, you're likely pessimistic, and it's been, 50-something years or 45 years since they last won the Super Bowl. So you're likely thinking this is going to hurt the Jets. And from that standpoint, it seems like with the Jets secondary already suspect that these guys, they might start grabbing onto people a little more, that they're going to get flagged for that. And quite frankly, as a Jets fan, you probably don't have a lot of faith in your wide receivers to be able to get people to grab onto them. I think Eric Decker's going to be able to do that. We'll see if Stephen Hill can do that.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I think Rex Ryan's a defensive coach. The Jets are a defensive team. Any rule that somehow helps with the offense hurts the Jets' defense.
Yes, I agree.
Well, until next week, I'm Mike McLaughlin.
And I'm Brendan McLaughlin.
On New York Jets Flight Plan. See you next time.
Oh, God.